Okay, welcome to another episode of the Leaving California podcast. Here we explore the stories of individuals and families who are trying to make the right decision on whether or not to leave California for greener pastures. I'm your host, Cherie Harrington, and today we have a very special guest and my friend, Christina Barbaro, who's a real estate agent from Chicago. And she's here to share with us insights about the ups and downs of making the move from the Golden State to the Chicago, Illinois area. So she's going to share with us the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes from what we can expect as Californians to moving to Chicago. And before I turn it over to Christina to tell us about her business, I can already hear people saying, why would you move from California to Chicago? So a lot of people who are leaving here are moving because of political reasons or hoping for better home affordability or less crime, right? So, Chicago. So I think it's important to remember that not everyone that's leaving here is leaving for those reasons. There's a lot of people that are trying to move closer to family or have a job relocation or something. So important thing to remember. So before we dive in, Christina, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and how you ended up becoming a real estate agent in Chicago?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me. And also thank you for pointing out that, fact, because when I think about it, I'm like, why would anybody leave that to come here? I think the same thing, but you're totally right. People move for a variety of reasons. It's not always, one thing. So a little bit about me, I will be starting my 6th year in business here in the Chicago land area. In June, I'll be going into my 6th year. My mom was a realtor when I was little. She raised us. And then I really got into it because I had the opportunity to flip a house back in 2018, I think it was. I was like 30 years old. And it was just a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom condo. And that whole process was like, whoa, this is so fun. I can totally do this. I tried to sell it by owner. So I was a FISBO at one point, but I gave myself like 3 or 4 weeks to try to do that on my own before I enlisted the help of an agent. And then after that, I was kind of hooked. And so I've been doing it ever since. My dad and my sister are both real estate attorneys. We use attorneys in our transactions. The second we get a property under contract, it goes to the attorneys and they kind of carry it through to the end in our area. So I have a great network. We all have a great network together. And that kind of also just went hand in hand and it felt right.
That's awesome. So I didn't know you flipped houses before. We need to talk about that.
Yeah.
It's interesting too that your mom was a realtor. My mom was a realtor until she was 80. She just stopped a couple of years ago. So There's definitely something about real estate. People get hooked, and if you love it, you definitely love it.
I don't know, like your whole life was your mom like, you need to do this? Because, my mom was, and that typical, don't do anything your parents tell you to. I wish I would have been sooner.
Yeah, my mom wasn't at all, but I think I saw how much she loved helping people and just the relationships that she built. And I think that's really cool.
Yes,
Very
for
cool.
Sure.
So let's talk about some of the positive things how long have you lived in Chicago?
Well, I was born here.
Okay.
But I did spend like the first 5 years of my life actually in Maui.
Oh, wow.
And then we moved back like in the mid 90s, 95, 96 ish. So I've been here ever since.
Okay.
And I was born in Chicago proper in the city. And then when we moved back from Maui, we moved just into the suburbs. So right now I live about 5 miles outside of Chicago proper, the outskirts of Chicago. But if I were to go, to the heart where, all of the action is, I'm about 16 miles or so from there.
Okay. I think that's a good location. So then you're not like deep in it.
Yeah.
Kind of like
here. On the best day ever, it will take me exactly 30 minutes to get into all the action into the city. But I'm also, at a safe distance out in the quiet suburbs.
Yeah, exactly. So tell us, for people that are considering moving there for whatever reason, from California, what are the positive aspects, or what do you love about living in Chicago?
Okay, a few things. I think specifically our summers. We have our own hashtag summertime shy, CHI.
Okay.
We're on the lake. We have like 33 miles of lakefront path that, is recreational. Beaches, which no one ever thinks about. We have actual beaches with sand here.
Oh,
Um,
didn't know that. That's
yeah,
interesting.
we have dog friendly beaches as well for the pet folks. We have a huge boating community. So for people in your area, in the San Diego area, like my former job was at the Chicago Yacht Club.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, I was the director of events for the Chicago Yacht Club. So we host regattas, we host races throughout the summer. Our claim to fame there was the race to Mackinac, which is in Michigan. 333 miles of sailing up to Michigan. So we have a huge recreation here in the summer. We also have Cook County, which is the county that Chicago is in. I'm in the suburbs, but I live in Cook County still. Has 70,000 acres of forest preserve land.
Wow.
And that doesn't even include any of the counties that surround Cook County, which have more, of course. And those are open all year round. So in the summertime, great, you do your hiking and whatever, but also in the wintertime, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, sledding, tobogganing, that kind of stuff as well. So
cool.
If you can brave the cold, there is stuff to do outdoors. But in the summer specifically, the place comes to life, and you can feel it on like the first warm day, which is probably now. We're at 50 degrees. Where last week when I was in Vegas, thank God, that whole week we were like 10 degrees, and I think at one point my sister sent a message that said it was -14 wind chill. So
Oh
on
my
a day
God.
like today, I can actually see people like outside walking around the neighborhood and stuff, and it just like comes to life, and you can literally feel it in the air when everyone's been cooped up, and then the first nice day, it's like explosion of energy in the air from everybody around.
Yeah, and I remember that living in upstate New York, you would be snowed in and so much snow for so long. Like you said, it's like for here, 50 degrees, we're freezing, right? With a winter jacket on and bundled up. But back there, it was like 50 degrees and we're outside with our shorts on, playing basketball
Exactly.
and all that stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. People are in shorts for sure. It's 50 degrees.
Yep.
But for me, I think it's the recreation and specifically the summers. And we are also a huge food city. We just finished restaurant week, which is awesome. Most restaurants participate and they come up with like a tasting menu kind of for a set price for lunch and dinner. So, it gives you an opportunity to try a bunch of things at places that you might not normally go. And they usually run that for actually like 2 weeks or so, every late January into February. And that's an awesome time to go experience the city and experience different places that you might not normally.
Okay, you're talking me into we need to meet up there for our group.
We do. We really do.
Summer only. I've been there in the winter.
Yeah, it's like I got all my spots. So I live in the suburbs, but I actually love working in the city. I used to live downtown, and I still have a few friends that are, holding on for dear life down there. But I love working in the city because I'm always like, hey, you guys, like, I'm coming up with some clients this afternoon. Like, let's go to our spot later.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest? So you lived in the city and now you live in the suburbs. Like where would you rather live? Like where you are in the stage of your life, and what are the differences that people can expect?
Yeah, well, I'm 35, if that helps anybody.
Okay.
I do live in a suburb, but I also live in a suburb where I live like 5 blocks from the downtown of the suburb, which has like 5 blocks of, eateries, bars, stuff to do. Like, we're not dead out here. I had a client once they were probably in their 60s moving from the city to the suburbs, and their kids were telling him, no, that's where you go to die. It's like,
oh my God.
It's not true. I promise. You go to Florida to die.
Right.
But yeah, there's stuff to do. But same thing in the city. Like there's always going to be something or someone looking for something to do in the city. And probably the only difference is places are open a little bit later downtown. That's really it.
Yeah.
That's really it. It's easy to get around in the city. The one thing I guess is the big difference would be expenses. It's kind of like,
so talk to me about housing prices, like where you are in the city. What is your average price there?
Yeah, so it kind of depends on what you're looking for. I would say an average house in the suburbs where I am is probably like in the 400 to 500 ballpark. You can get a pretty decent sized house and nice, right, in that price range. But, we also have in some of the surrounding suburbs giant estates for $10 million, right? It just depends because we have land if you go a little further out. Condos in the city, again, like in the heart of the city, probably start about $200,000 for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. But you can, if you're on the 50th floor with some kind of balcony and a view of the lake, I mean, you could go into the millions, multi-millions for a condo.
Yeah.
There's in Trump Tower, which is right on the river, which we have a river, which is right on the river. I mean, you're multi-millions in that building for sure. Okay. So it kind of goes, there's a span. One thing people probably hear about a lot is our property taxes. And whatever they hear is probably
does that work there?
Yeah, it's in Cook County, it's like 2%. You could assume 2% of your home value. It's slightly over that, which I think I was reading recently that the national average is about 1%. So we're double.
Yes, 1%. So we are lucky, I guess, here, and that it's 1% of your purchase price, and we're not really reassessed every year. I mean, they can assess it, they can reassess you, but I think it's a 2% cap or something on the amount that you can go up. So yours are 2%, and then are they reassessed every year?
We assess triennially, so every 3 years.
Okay.
And they rotate, like the township that gets assessed. So last year, the South Chicago and suburbs were assessed, and now, then they rotate kind of around and come back around every 3 years. Yeah.
Okay. Do you guys have a lot of little extra taxes on top of your property taxes? Like we have here, it's called Melrose, and that is for like bonds that were passed by voters for schools, infrastructure, those type of things.
No, not that I'm aware of. There was recently a proposal within the city of Chicago from our current, who's kind of new mayor, to impose a tax, kind of like, I think, was it California that has a mansion tax?
Yeah.
Okay.
LA. I think just
very similar to that. Properties over $1 million will have an additional tax in the transfer of a sale specifically. So it's not every year,
so it's
but
not even
when
like,
the property
I think
transfers.
Okay, I think in LA it's over 10 million. So it's over $1 million there.
Yeah. Wow. I don't think that passed. And that would have been at the beginning of the year. I know I would have heard about it. So I have a couple investor clients that will buy houses probably anywhere in the 400 to 600 range, knock them down, and then build a new construction in the 1.5 to 2-ish range. And so that was a big concern because the city of Chicago itself, anytime you transfer property, regardless of the price, has a tax when you transfer. And they were just talking to increase that transfer tax on properties over $1 million.
Okay.
So yeah, we charge, or they charge anytime you buy and sell.
Okay. Yeah. That's super interesting. I think it's things like that people don't know about, unless you live there or you're really like using an exceptional realtor like yourself, so you
Yeah,
can
that
explain
is
those things.
definitely part of my conversations when I'm talking specifically about a property within Chicago. And they charge, like, it's expensive. Like if you were to buy and sell a property, they're getting $10 per thousand of the purchase price every sale.
Wow. Okay,
$10.
let me ask you this too. So we have a supplemental tax, property tax. So if you bought your house at $100,000 a million years ago, and then you resell it at $1 million, the person that buys it has to make up that difference, has to make
Oh
up the
God,
property. So they
no.
would owe like $9,000. Do you
Wow.
guys have that, or is that what your
No,
tax is
nope.
kind of the same thing ish?
Yeah, we don't have anything like that. Thank God. Don't give them any ideas, Cherie. Jeez.
I know, it's crazy, and that's why a lot of people don't sell. And that,
Yeah.
they've bought their
Keep
house,
it in the
especially the
family.
old Carlsbad area. A lot of people have lived there forever. So yeah, it's crazy.
That is
Crazy.
wild.
What about homeowners insurance there? Are you guys having any issues with that?
So, yes, I personally have not seen an increase yet, but I do anticipate, like on my next premium or my next renewal date, that it's gonna increase. And I've been hearing chatter that people are, increasing or being dropped altogether.
Okay.
This past summer, we had a huge, I don't know if you've ever heard the term derecho. It's like a straight line of storms that literally went from the north suburbs to the south suburbs. And in one night, it produced something like 40 tornadoes, like straight
Oh my
down.
God.
Yes. So
Wow.
a ton of people were affected by flooding and roof claims. And so, like, literally last summer, everybody was getting new roofs with insurance claims. So even clients of mine that didn't file a claim were mentioning that their insurance was rising because everybody else was tapping into that opportunity there. So yeah, I'm sure we're going to see more of it in the next year. I have also heard, haven't experienced personally, but I've also heard more companies during the process of actually purchasing the house are denying people because of, former claims or whatever the home inspection comes back with.
Yeah, it's been interesting. What would you say the average, I know it's hard to tell, but like the average person's going to pay for insurance in a year?
I would say for a condo, you're probably looking at $1,000 to $1,200, and like your average single family home, probably under $2,000 a year.
Okay, so it is more expensive here then.
Yeah.
I feel like even though our insurance is high here, I feel like other areas are still way higher. Like Florida is obscene, and I know like they have a hurricane every year, right? And I mean, we have fires every year, but it doesn't destroy like the whole state or pockets of the state. So it's kind of, the insurance thing is very, very interesting.
Yeah. And we're I know it sounds crazy, but we are pretty mild in terms of like crazy events, right? That would affect a large, subset of people in the area. But last year specifically, we did have that one storm, and it was so wild, like literally on the radar, it was just one straight line of red. And it came through and destroyed a lot. So that was a huge event that happened. But really, like, flood insurance here is very property specific. If you back up to like a creek or a body of water, but in the suburbs and in the city, like, it's very uncommon to have to carry flood insurance. It's all pretty much just your basic homeowners insurance, condo or single family, property.
Okay. What would you say, what are some things like I hate using that word bad. I need to change that. Some bad things or some things that people might not, I mean, the weather, obviously, right?
Right.
The weather's pretty perfect here throughout most of the state. So we know that it's cold and it's windy, but what are other things that people really need to take into account before they just jump and move there if they haven't really done their homework?
Well, I will say about the weather, like, when we do get those real cold spells, it's like a week tops. And if you've never had the opportunity to just sit at home in your pajamas for a week, you now have that opportunity. So it's nice. And you put a fire on and you sit there and you drink your coffee. Like no one's going outside, like literally no one. So it's kind of nice because it slows your pace of life down a little bit, to be honest. And you just
kind of like when it rains here.
Yeah, exactly. Long periods of time, I think everyone would be like, all right, we're done with this. But it's kind of nice every once in a while to just stay in your PJs,
Right. Exactly.
I would say, and I think this is probably on a lot of people's minds, specifically because it's posted in the media all the time, is our crime. I do think that what you see on TV and wherever you get your news from is pretty accurate. I think the crime has risen and increased, specifically within the city limits. But, when I try to put things into perspective, like you're really not safe anywhere these days. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just, you got to put a little onus on yourself to recognize your surroundings and just pay attention to what's going on around you. And I do think, thankfully, I think that our resources are strong, if that makes sense. I do think we have a very good police department in the city and in the suburbs where I live, so I do think we have good response to that kind of stuff, which is good. And I know some cities struggle with that, or at least you see that on the news. But it is definitely a real thing. And in the summertime specifically, when it's nice out and people are out, it goes up, just like it would anywhere else. So it's just a matter of like being diligent in what you're doing and who you're doing it with and what's going on around you, I think. Public transportation is relatively safe. If you live in the city, it's packed during rush hour, right? And it's just like those after hours, you want to pay attention or maybe take an Uber if you have to, rather than putting yourself, if you're alone, putting yourself in a situation like that. I do think definitely that is accurate on what you see on the media for sure. But like I said, I just remind myself that stuff happens every day, everywhere. And I do have to wonder too, like with our accessibility to information, if that's a little bit has to do with it. Back in the day, we didn't get information as fast or as much and often as we do now.
Right.
So is it really, an increase by X amount of percentage, or are we just learning about it faster? Right.
Right. Because there's more coverage and social media, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I will say personally, I do feel that is accurate especially since like I left the city for the suburbs. I'm like, wow, if I was still there, I feel like it would be a lot different than it was when I was there.
What about the homeless situation? Do you feel like since COVID, do you feel like it's gotten worse, or is it the same?
I feel personally that it's the same. However, I do know that like we are a sanctuary city, so I would say the increase in the migrants is definitely a thing. I had an opportunity last year to work with Catholic Charities where we were feeding people basically. And that was super eye-opening because the amount of people that were not English speaking coming through was significant, which was very surprising. But I do think the city actually does a decent job at like keeping them off the streets. There are camps for sure, and there always has been.
Yeah.
But I do think they keep it under control pretty well.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. You pretty much know, like you learn when you're driving around, like where they are. Mm-hmm. A lot of times they're under the viaducts, right? To be as protected. They really don't let them like set up shop in a park or anything like that. They're pretty contained to certain areas. Okay. And the city actually at one point, I don't even know if they still do this, but they did provide them with tents.
Yeah, that's how it is here.
Yeah. So you'll see them and you kind of, that, that's a city provided tent. They're a certain color, but they really, I feel like they do a good job of actually keeping them off the streets. They're definitely there, but it's not like overwhelming.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally. Is there anything else you can think of, just that would be differences? Like, what are your gas prices there?
Oh, okay. I did see this on your sheet. I feel like we fluctuate so much. There's one, like I have my favorite gas station, if that's a thing, but their cash price sometimes is like 15 cents less than the guy across the street. It's like, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I would say like average, we're like $3 to $3.20 a gallon. And then in the summertime or on like a, holiday weekend where people are driving maybe a little bit more to like a lake house or something like that, you could definitely get into the high threes where we are now, right? I feel like things have kind of leveled out in that sense. So yeah, I would say like 3.15 is probably a good safe bet.
So, okay, that's crazy. I mean, here it's in mid fives. And when I went to the airport last week, it was almost $7.
Okay. Do you buy premium gas?
We have electric cars, so we don't worry about it. But
I do have a hybrid as well.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't pay super attention because I get gas like once every 2 weeks, maybe.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I don't get premium either. So it's less of a factor for me. But one other positive that I will say that I do love about the city of Chicago is its cleanliness. And I really just compare. I don't know if anybody's been to Rome or if you've been to Rome. I was like shocked at how dirty it was when I went. This is like 10 years ago too. So who knows what they've done, but New York City as well. I was also shocked that, they keep their trash on the front, and that's how in the front of the building, and that's how the trash people get picked up. We have an alley system. So I think another benefit to us is we are on a grid. And that was one good thing that came out of the Chicago fire, is that it gave us the opportunity to kind of like redo the way, our infrastructure was.
Yeah.
So everything makes sense. The streets go up and down in numbers if you're going north or south. And then we have alleys as well, which is where all our trash goes. So if you're just walking on the sidewalk, it's clean. And that's
interesting. I never thought about that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a very clean city, which I appreciate.
Yeah, totally.
There was another thing that I was mentioning. I had a good conversation with Jessica, our friend in Jacksonville, right? In Florida, not too long ago. And, they were we talked a lot about income tax and insurance. But we also talked a lot about jobs and on the line of income tax. And Chicago is actually, and this is probably relevant to you guys, like we're becoming a bit of a tech hub. And we have Google, we have Facebook. We have Salesforce is huge here. They have a huge building in the city. McDonald's is headquartered here, Boeing, United. So we really do have like a very techie, but also like big Fortune 500 company presence.
Yeah.
Which is, it's nice. There's a lot of transient people that, work for those companies and willing to travel for those companies. And we do have a very big presence of that as well.
Okay. Interesting. What would you say? So I always tell people that are thinking about leaving, like to try to go to that area that they're considering if they can, not everyone has the luxury, but try to go for a few weeks or a month, like in the worst time of year. So what would you say for somebody leaving here, going there? What month would you have them go stay there to make sure?
Right now. Yeah. Literally right now. Like the holiday jazz is over, right? Which makes, it could be cold in December, but it's fun because everybody's in good spirits, right?
Right.
But now there's really nothing going on. We just came off a week of, single digit temperatures and below zero temperatures.
Yeah.
and there's really, not much going on, which I think is why Restaurant Week is actually so exciting, because it's like in this period of
nothing else to do.
Yeah, exactly. It gets you out of the house. But yeah, I would tell them to come right now. And then I would also tell them to come maybe like July, August. June is our wettest month of the year, so that's why I would stay away from that. And also, it takes a long time for the lake specifically to like the water to get up to like a swimmable temperature, because it does freeze. So even in like June, it could be really hot, but the water's still really cold. So if you come in late summer, you'll get a good taste of everything for sure. And we're very neighborhoody, if that makes sense. So we have like, I think there's almost 40 different neighborhoods within the city of Chicago itself. And, there's different like subsets of people, like, okay, these are where all the Google folks live, right? Very techie, very, foodie, super foodie focused. Or here's where, all of our like recreational folks live because it's close to the beach. It is very much so like that. So if you can get here in the summer or in one of the summer months, you're going to get the best feel for the neighborhood that you might want to live in. But if you're looking for like the bad, I would probably come now. Just to see
that's what everybody wants to go with the good time, right? Because you're like, oh my God, this place is amazing. Yeah. But then when you have to be there, like during the freezing weather and the wind, and that's all I remember. I mean, I was there once for my friend's wedding, and it was beautiful on the lake. And then another time I was there in the winter, and it was unbelievable. And I'm from upstate New York. It gets cold there, but it was unbelievably cold, like with the wind and
the wind.
All of
the
that.
Wind is the worst part of it all, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like you definitely need to know what you're getting yourself into.
They do call us the Windy City, but it is not because it's windy.
Why is it?
It's because our politicians can be blown around.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's actually more of like a political term. We're
interesting.
Any windier than any other, place.
Yeah. Okay. I just figured it was because that one time I was there, it was so windy and cold.
It does. We do get windy, but probably just as windy as anybody else. But it does make the cold way more brutal.
Yeah, sure. Totally.
Yeah, you learned something today.
Yep, exactly. Well, I learned a lot. Thank you. I really appreciate you hopping on. It's been super helpful, and I'm sure the listeners appreciate your honesty and practical advice. And just to our audience, again, make sure you explore your why. Why are you actually leaving here? Are you mad at Gavin Newsom for something? Are you mad at, something political that could change? I feel like things are changing here a little bit politically for the better.
Good.
But definitely, re-examine your why and make sure that whether you're moving to Chicago or anywhere else, make sure that you're moving in a smart way. And I always tell people, if you're able to keep your house here and rent it out or whatever and move there and rent, do that. Because I've had so many people, and no one wants to believe this, but so many people that have left the state, and within like a month or 2 months, they're like, why did I move to Arizona? Why did I move to Florida? I have some people coming back from Idaho right now. They hate it, and they want to come back. And now they're getting less of a house, if they can even afford it now, because the prices keep going up, and the interest rates are higher. Like, do your due diligence, please. That's all I ask for people that are considering leaving. And it's a great place to live here, but it's the same as everywhere else. It's got its ups and downs. So
100%. And I would recommend, the same thing to anybody coming here is rent for a year. If you're if you're trying to be in the city where kind of all the action is, the neighborhoods truly are different, and it could be from block to block. So rent for a year and spend that year kind of hopping around and seeing what each has to offer before you plant your roots, for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I didn't know that about Chicago, that it was so neighborhoody.
Yes.
Like San Diego is too, but I think you're a way bigger city than we are. Maybe not. I don't know. But But thank you for coming on.
Yeah, this was so fun.
So appreciate you and appreciate your friendship and being a part of my referral network. And I absolutely love having you there so I can refer people there and I know they're being taken care of. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to work with any of you that are interested in coming out this way, brave enough. And like Cherie said, you will get honesty from me, no doubt.
Yeah, I appreciate
Not
that.
going to sugarcoat it.
What's the best way for them to reach you?
So if you just put my name into any social media there, you'll find me, and then it will give you my phone number, my email. But if you just pop my name, it'll come up Christina Barbaro Realtor on any of the social medias. And then that way you could get to me anyway from there.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Have a good day. Thank you.
You too. Thanks.
Bye.